Okay guys, so in this class we are going to be designing our login page. So as you can see from my emulator here, this is what the login page will look like. Okay, so we are going to jump right into it so that we can do it together and produce this simple stuff here, and we can use it as our login page for Uber Rider app. So guys, let's dive in. So the first thing that we need to do will be to add a new layout file. And to do that, we go to Solutions Explorer. On that layout, I right click, add a new item, Android layout, of course, and I call it login. So just wait for it to complete loading so that we can start. As we are writing our code here, as we are writing our XML code, we'll be seeing the design, take shape on this other side. So there's a couple of things that we need to do. First of all, we need to define a new theme that we'll be using for our app. Okay, we are currently using the default theme that came with Visual Studio, but we probably don't want to do that. We need our own theme. So before we do anything, we need to define our theme. Okay, so to do that, we go to our style file in values folder. So we're going to define a new style. This style is more like a theme that we'll be using for our app. As you can see, we have some different colors here. This accent color, we need to bring it in our theme, and you can see the primary dark color here. So we need to define those so that we can run with that. So I'll call this. So defining our theme, we'll call it Uber theme. Uber theme. The parent will be theme dot app compact dot light, and we don't want an action bar. We don't want any action bar because we want the top bar to be freed up. We don't need it for anything. As you can see, the toolbar is not added to this particular layout, so the theme we'll be using will be no action bar. So the parent theme we'll be using will be no action bar. Okay. Okay. So guys, I didn't add the values because we've not defined the colors. So to do that, we head over to our color.xml. Here we will define our colors. Okay. So let's go over here and write color name. Let's call this Uber primary. And we use hash. I'll use hash 102.838. Okay. So the next one will be color. So the next one, color name will be Uber accent color. This will be hash EE861F. Okay, this will be our accent color. So the next one will be primary dark. We'll name it Uber primary dark, and the value will be hash 102.838. So seems I made a mistake. This is supposed to be 1C4358. So now that we've completely defined the color values in our color.xml, so we just have to head over to our stars.xml and assign the values here. So assigning the values over primary dark over accent color. So guys, we are done defining our theme. So the next thing to do is to head back to our layout file and continue designing our login page. There are two sections here, the top section and the down section, so we need to divide our page. So I will try to be fast with this, okay, but I will ensure that the page is okay, that you will follow through. So I set the height to 0 dp because we want to use layout weight, okay, to divide the two segments of the page. So assign this 0, 0.6, and of course the background. Bam. Okay, so that's our relative layout, the first section. So the second section needs to be a linear layout. Orientation should be vertical. Layout height will be 0. Layout width will be equal to match parent. And of course our layout weight would be 0.4. Okay, so we've successfully divided the two page. So the next thing we want to do is to bring in an image, the round image that we saw there. We need to bring that in. So to have that round image here, we need a CircleImage view. So we can grab that from the Nugget package manager. So let's download a Nugget package for the CircleImage. CircleImage. So this is the CircleImage view control that we'll be using, to achieve the rounded image that we have at the center of the page. Okay, so we just have to install this, and installation was successful. So rule of thumb is always to build after installing a new Nugget package. Seems there's an error in our styles. Okay, I'll take care of that. Okay. So build is successful. So now let's define our CircleImage view. Call this CircleImage 1 and set this at layout height, let's say that's 200 dp. Layout width, set it as 180 dp. And also we have to center it in parent, the parent which is our relative layout. Equal to true. So the next thing we need to do is to bring in our image, the image that is going to occupy this space. So I already have such image designed and is on my desktop. So I have to add it to my drawable folder. To do that, I right click on my drawable folder and hit add existing item. So I go to my desktop, I'll locate the file, center image, that's the file. I will add it to my project. So now it has been added. I will now need to reference it as the source of my CircleImage view. So android.src equal to at drawable slash center image. So this is how to assign the image to our CircleImage control. So it's going to show up in a bit. So after that, we need to now write Uber Rider under the CircleImage view, okay? Just the way we have it here. And to do that, we need to add a text view to our layout. Text view. Android dot layout height will be wrap content. Android dot layout width pardon me for that. Layout width will be match parent. Android.gravity. Gravity will center the text. So the next thing we might need to set is our text size. We send this to 20 SP. We're gonna put it below our center image. So Android.below, because we're using a relative layout, so we need to set all these things. It's very important to ensure that everything is well aligned. Layout below. So we're going to reference our CircleImage view control. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we have to align this particular text view to the bottom of our relative layout. Align parent bottom. So we're gonna set this to true, and of course we need to set the text color, and this should be white. Okay, so we need to define a white color in our color.xml. So I'll just go ahead and define uber white. Color name uber white #fff. So we head back to our login design. That's color slash. Okay, so let's build this and ensure that everything is fine. So everything seems fine. So sometimes Visual Studio could go haywire and the design won't resolve appropriately, but don't worry, just go ahead and keep typing the code. So what we're going to be doing in the downside of the design is we're going to use a test impute layout to define our email and password edit text boxes. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we're going to add a little bit of some padding to our linear layout. So we'll bring in a test impute layout, and to do that, we're going to call android.support.design.widget. We can see it here, so we just select that. Okay, so we're going to set some attributes here. Android.layout width, set that to match parent. Android.layout height, set that to wrap content. So let's set the name, the ID, to be email text, and inside of it we're going to define our edit text, wrap content, Android.layout with match parent, Android.hint, email, impute type, text email address. And I think that's it. You can see this is properly resolved. So let's add another text impute layout for our password. So just copy this and paste this and change this to password test. Change this to password. Our input type will be password, test password. So the next thing to do is to add our button. And to do that, we want our button to be centered, so we could just go ahead and add the relative layouts for that. So set that to match parent. So we're going to define our button inside of it so that we can align it to center. Okay, so define a button and add the attributes Android.layout height. I like to use 45. Okay, so but you can use the height that appeals to you the most. I really like 45. With 300 dp is just okay. And I want to set the test to login, the text color to be white. It's uber white. And I want to set the background. I want to set the background to be our accent color. Uber accent color. Okay. So now we want to make the button to be centralized. Okay, so we have to align layout center in parent. I'm going to set that to true. So it's now centered. So guys, as you can see, our button doesn't have some round corners, but we need that just like we have in this one. We need these soft edges. Okay, so to do that, we need to create a layer list. And to do that, we have to go to our drawable folder and add a new XML file and call it Uber round button. Okay, so this a new XML file, we'll call it Uber round button. Okay, so inside the file, I have the code already, so I'm going to paste it and explain what happens here, guys. So first of all, I defined a new layer list, and I don't want any margins of any kind, so I just want everything to remain the same. So the gradient, if you want gradient fill for your button, you could add an end color and a start color. So I took out time, to add all these things so that in case you want to more like play around the coloring, for your own button. But if I want mine to just be one color, so I use one color throughout. So if you want a gradient fill for your button, you can have that here. Okay, so if you want a different stroke color or a different stroke thickness, you can increase this to 2 if you want a higher thickness. Okay, and if you want to set the color of your stroke, you could set it here as well, but I don't want any of those, so I just left mine as over accent color. So the radius is actually what gives it the round edges. Okay, if you want it to be perfectly round, you can increase the value of this radius. Okay, but I don't want any of that. I just want it to just be a slight curve at the edge. All right, so if you want some padding, you can achieve that with this. So what I did was I defined a new color. So when I click my button, when the button is pressed, I want something different. I want a new color to be applied to my button. I call that Uber Accent Click. So unfortunately, I have not defined this color yet. All right, so we just head over to our colors so that I can define this particular color. So it has to be different from our Uber Accent color. The reason is because you want to be notified when you press your button. Okay, you want to get some feedback, so a different color will give you a feedback that you actually press the button. So we call this Uber Accent Click. All right, so the value for this will be the value for this will be hash A25508. Okay, so this is the color we want to use for that. All right, so we are done with this. Now we need to assign this Uber round button XML as the background of our button. Okay, so instead of having background as Uber accent color, all right, so we'll set the XML as our button background. So to do this, we'll now assign the button XML as our background, which is a drawable slash Uber round button. So guys, you can see how beautiful this is. So this is what we have here. So the last thing we want to do is to add the small text here that said no register, click to register. Okay, which is very simple to do. Okay, we've not added an ID for our button, so we'll just do that. I'll call this login button. So add a new text view, wrap content, layout width will be match parent, gravity will be center. I'm going to add some margin. Let's just make it 8 dp, and of course our text will be, so head over to a string.xml and define a new string. So we can add this here, string name equal to click here. We can just call it click here. Okay, so the value will be not registered, click. Save that. So in our layout file, we'll now reference our string, a string.click. Okay, that should suffice. So as you can see, it jumped over the button, so we need to make it to be under the button, and this is the usefulness of relative layout. So we just write Android below layout below our button. So the next thing to do is to define our login activity. Okay, so that we can load in this view when we want to test it. So what to do here is to go into our activities folder and add a new activity called login activity. A new item, an activity. So call this login activity. Login activity. So we want to change the label. The first thing we want to do is to change the label. Reference our string, app name, and rule of thumb, set the theme at style dot uber theme. Okay, so we want to make this the main launcher so that we could just see it at once. And remember to make this not to be the main launcher anymore, okay, which is our, I think, our splash activity. We want to remove it for now, okay. So let's set this to false. So get back to our login activity. So this is where we'll load our view. Say set content view resource dot layout dot login. So guys, this is it. I think we are done here. So we're gonna build it and ensure that everything works fine. So our build is succeeded. So it seems there is an error, so I'm gonna quickly find what that is and fix it. Okay guys, so I just fixed the error. What I did was I figured out that my CircleImage controller didn't really install appropriately. So what I did was I removed the Nugget package from my project, cleaned my project, and installed it again. And when I installed it, I gave it some time, to save. Then I built it again, and I now pasted my code, and everything worked fine. As you can see, it is well resolved and is showing. So the other thing that I didn't do was to add a text for my text view, which is supposed to be Uber rider. So these things could be tricky at times, so that just it. So guys, the last thing I want to do is to add Android layer below CircleImage, so everything checks out. So guys, now we are finally done. So we're gonna debug it, we're gonna run it on our emulator and see that everything is fine. Okay, so let's deploy it. Okay, so our build is completing. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. Bam. So guys, you can see this is exactly what we have in the formal design. Okay, so our login page is ready just the way we wanted it. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the class. So see you in the next class.